Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it.
Technology, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Master Connector Show. I'm your co-host, Rob Genovesi, and I hope you're joining us every single week because we're coming at you live every single Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, live on LinkedIn. We're going to be sending this out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify after the recording. But if you join live, you can interact with us because that's the idea here. We're not just going to talk at you. We want to talk with you. We want to hear your questions. You know, when you can come here and ask questions of our guests, ask questions of us, you can learn a whole lot more. Get out of this what you want to get out of it. And, you know, bookmark your calendar. Every single week at 1 p.m., we're going to be coming at you. But go to masterconnector.show to see exactly who we have coming up in the future because we have amazing, amazing guests. I'm so excited for today's guest, but we got a lot of guests coming at you who are going to bring their stories, their skills, their experiences to help you level up. Steve and I do this because we like to learn, but we want to bring the learning and the value to you. So go to masterconnector.show and see what's coming up. And if you can't make every week, but we hope you can, bookmark the week that you want to hear a particular someone. Because look, we all know this. As we further our opportunities, there are gaps in our knowledge that will slow us down. And we want to be able to speed things up. Success favors speed. And when you close the gaps, you will speed up the process of success. So if you got something missing in there, get with the calendar, put it in there. That way you can catch the episode you need to move forward faster. And, you know, speaking of success favoring speed, you know, we got a great show for you today. Steve's going to talk about it, but the quantum leaps for relationships. We all know that business and opportunities about relationships, quantum leaps. I'm excited to hear from our guest about how that is done. And when he's on here, look, when this show is on and we got the guests rolling, the conversation going, make sure you're commenting, you're liking, you're sharing. The interaction is a big part of this. Let us know where you're tuning in from because we have people from all over the U.S., but we have people coming in from around the world too. We also want you to be able to put those questions in the comments so you can get them answered. You know, 27 years ago, Steve Spiro and I met two introverts, two former shy guys who couldn't talk to people. I think Steve had the confidence to do it, but maybe had some things in there he had to work on. I was deathly terrified as an adult to be able to talk to a person. If you can imagine as an adult, I couldn't even do it. But here we are, 26 years later. We went through a lot. We learned a lot. We are still introverts because it's an energy thing, but we are not shy guys because we're hosting the Master Connector Show. And I like to think that if you're here and you're on LinkedIn a lot, that you are a connector too. You're a master connector. But look, there is only one, the Master Connector. Bring him up, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's up, Robbie G? 27 years ago. And by the way, you said Steven Spiro. Uh-oh. I felt like I was in trouble because my mom, when she was mad at me, she'd say Steven Spiro. And if she was really mad, she'd say Stephen Lawrence Spiro, you know, like go with the middle name. So, yeah. But anyway, I appreciate you. It's been a great journey together. And, yeah, we've grown a lot since then. So, anyway, what's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. It is amazing to be on here today with you. And I want to say this. Listen, you know, Rob mentioned it before. You know, we're former shy guys, introverts. And I honestly went into advertising in the art side, graphic design. I know Rob also has that because I didn't want to talk to anybody. I thought, all right, back in the day, I'm going to date myself, but there wasn't even computers. It was a drafting table, right? And T-Square and Exacto. And I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Maybe Rob does because we have similar backgrounds. But it was like, you don't have to deal with anyone. And then all of a sudden I get into advertising. And I'm like, all right, I guess I got to start talking to people. And it still was a struggle, a big time journey. And for me, and having the ability to have relationships. My partner at one point says, hey, Steve, I got great news. We're gonna send you to a course on the company. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And I'm like, okay, great. And I didn't know that was his way of saying your relationship skills suck, which they did. They were non-existent, right? But as I started to grow and I met a mentor, me and Rob share a mutual mentor in our life for quite a while. And, he kind of challenged me to meet those street strangers every day. And that started to change. And I got on LinkedIn. I started getting into networking and started to grow relationship skills. But it's funny. I got to say this, right? As we're on LinkedIn, a lot of us, I don't know if you're getting this. I get it a lot. I get pitch slapped. That's with the P, right? Where people are just pitching you all the time. And, whatever happened? Right? We know the phrase, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. It's like, hey, you want to go on one date and marry me tomorrow? Like, what's the story? I know that happens in Vegas, but other than that, it doesn't happen anywhere. You got to have a relationship. And we're going to talk about relationships and how to build relationships. And one of the great advantages that Rob and I, and I don't mean this in a manipulative way, but having a show, a podcast, something like this, we've developed some great relationships. I popped on the green room a little bit later. Rob and Dustin were on already and already connecting and already looking at collaboration. And through doing stuff like this, podcasts and shows, you could actually grow relationships. It's given me, I recently got some incredible recommendations on LinkedIn because of people that were on my show and on our show, not my show, our show. And when I say our show, not just Rob and I show, it's your show. This is our show. It's our community, all of us. Right. But I've been able to get some great recommendations from people because of them being on the show and the collaboration. So we're going to learn a lot about it, how to build those relationships, grow those relationships, and really take some quantum leaps with your business. So I'm excited for this show. Hopefully you are as well. And if you're ready, I want you to type in #let's go, and we'll have Robbie bring up our guest. So Rob, I'll pass it to you.
All right, let's go. Dustin Riechmann is a serial entrepreneur and the founder of 7-Figure Leap. Can't wait to hear about that. He specializes in helping mission-driven experts build seven-figure brands by telling their story. Please welcome to the show, Dustin Riechmann. What's up, Dustin?
Hey, Steve. Hey, Rob. It's awesome to be here. Really excited to get into the mix of master connecting here.
Absolutely.
Good to have you.
And Dustin, you're a low-key guy too. So I think we share that background where there's 3 former shy guys on the call here, like I can tell.
Yeah, I'm definitely an introvert. My professional background was in engineering, and so it doesn't get much more, stereotypical guy in the corner, shy guy than that. But through the strategies we're going to talk about today, I connect with a ton of people and do it in a way that's really comfortable. So.
Listen, I read a book recently. It's called The Introvert's Guide to the Networking. And I think we have advantages as introverts. We do. And but we're going to talk a lot about that. So let's jump right into it, right? Community. We want to hear about quantum leap. So let's put in the hashtag or in the comments, #quantum leap. And we would love to hear your perspective. What's one bold shift professionals can make to create massive momentum in their business relationships?
Yeah, I think we've already been hinting at it, and I would say it is within your zone of genius, within your comfort zone, getting out there and telling your story and being proactive about how you connect, right? And we'll talk about different strategies and applications on how to do that. But I think the bold shift professionals need to make, and especially in an age of AI and ubiquitous information, it's not so much about what you know, it's very much about who you know, and getting out and telling your unique story is the way to stand out and actually attract a lot of great connections.
Yeah, I'm going to echo that because Dustin, I tell everybody wherever I go, I spent 25 years in corporate America, and that really trains you how to be a good soldier, but not how to be a great entrepreneur. So when I came out, I didn't know what to do. How did I talk about what I do without a strong following of clients? Like, I had some clients, but not a lot of great stories. I told my story of how I came to be a brand strategist after running a website design company for a few years and not making enough profit. Telling that story got me business flat out, I'll tell you.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's and by the way, you need to talk to somebody like a Rob on how to really craft that story, right? Because there's an art to crafting your story, and it doesn't just happen. I remember recently, I think I may have shared this, but I was on a call with a guy, actually it was a lady, and I said, "Tell me your story," and she gave me like a minute and a half, and then I'm like, okay, "Great, but I'd like to hear your story. Like I know what you do, and that's fine, but let's hear your story." Well, 30 minutes later, she was still going. I'm like, and it was a 30-minute call, so I'm like, Unfortunately, I gotta go. But I booked it only for 30 minutes. So, but we rebooked, and I started the second call. I said, don't take this wrong. I'm not trying to be an egomaniac. That's not what I'm doing. But let me show you what a story should sound like. And I went through my story. And she's like, "Oh, I get it now." Like, but it doesn't just happen. You can't just ramble on, But anyway, it's good stuff. All right, so we want to talk about visibility, right? We want to talk about things in that nature, because again, it's to me, LinkedIn is a platform. But if I know people say, "Oh, well, I don't know if I want to have a lot of connections if I don't know them." Okay, or you can have a lot of connections and have high visibility to those people, and I think that's the camp that you, me, and Rob live in. So let's talk about visibility, right? How could podcast guesting elevate your brand and attract high value relationships?
Yeah, so podcast guesting is sort of the thing I'm known for. So if you go to my LinkedIn, the very first thing on there is profitable podcast guesting, right? And so you get asked a lot, like, why this? There's so many ways to market. There's so many ways to facilitate connections. I think podcast guesting is a really unique way to do this in a really high quality way. First of all, you are borrowing other people's audiences, right? So it's great to build your own audience. It's great to build your own LinkedIn following. That takes time. And anyone who's ever tried to host a podcast or grow a YouTube channel or grow a LinkedIn following, it's a very worthy thing to do, but it takes a long time, right? Whereas podcast guesting, you can come on, be a featured expert, and I like to call it the Oprah effect. You guys were dating yourselves in the intro, so some of our listeners may not even know the Oprah effect. But Oprah had this massive platform, and she didn't try to hold that to herself. She invited all these guest experts on to enrich the experience, and from that, people like Rachel Ray and Dr. Oz and Dr. Phil, all these huge brands emerged from going on and being a featured expert on her platform. So I think as far as visibility goes, inserting yourself as an expert into someone else's pre-built, pre-established platform and borrowing the audience in a way that is serving to you, to the host, and to their audience is a really, really smart strategy.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're actually, so you have your own, network, whatever, connection list, right? But now you're on somebody else's, and now you have all of theirs, right? Everyone in theirs, and it's another way to get, that visibility that we're talking about, but also potential, create some leads for you, right? If that's what you're looking to do, right? And that's what we want to, touch on next, right? Is on lead generation. And so, community, type in hashtag leads generation. What's the secret to turning podcast interviews into a steady stream of qualified leads?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it starts with the selection of the platform. So you want to be on podcasts that are relevant, right? So podcasts that have your people listening, your people also being interviewed on those podcasts. And in many cases, the host themselves is going to be a great connection for you because almost by definition, they're an influencer in your industry, right? So once you're on the right podcast, you want to do a good job and you want to get on there and spotlight your expertise, right? So you want to teach, you want to tell the right stories, have an emotional connection with that audience. And then the part that a lot of people miss is you also need to tell people what to do next, because if you just leave it to the interview itself, it's great, but there's way more value in bringing those people over into your world, just the right people, just the people that want to go deeper. And so that's through a strong call to action, right? So typically at the end of the interview, the host is going to say, "This has been amazing. For people that want to go deeper, what's the next step?" And you want to really be prescriptive and clear and concise and say, "This is the next step." And when you do that, you can bring people over into your platform, your email list, your following. And so that's a way to bridge the gap from just the exposure that you're going to get from the show through lead generation. So it's a conversion moment. And it's really important to have that clear call to action at the end of the interview.
So what I'm hearing you saying, Dustin, is something that I Steve and I are big networkers. I've networked a lot in person, a lot through, Zoom meetings all over the country, other parts of the world. And I speak with hundreds and hundreds of solopreneurs all the time. And they seem to have what we call these gaps in their knowledge. And what you just stated was actually a sequential linking together different things you need to do. Because I know a lot of people think, well, man, I've been on dozens and dozens of podcasts and it's got me no business. Yes. So you're saying they're missing something, right? What, the offer, right? The pieces that come after. Why do people think that if I just go on there and get the visibility, like Steve brought up, why do they think that visibility alone will get them business? And what should they do?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest kind of misnomers. I always say when people come to me and I'm the podcast guesting guy, I usually hear one of two stories. One is, hey, I stumbled my way onto a couple of podcasts. I got a client from it. It was amazing. I just don't know how to do that consistently. So doing it consistently is one of the big pieces. And I think more what you're talking about, Rob, is this other camp of, hey, I was on 100 podcasts last year. I know how to get on shows. I think I'm a good interviewer, but I say, that's great. You're an entrepreneur. What did it do for your business? And often the response is, I don't know, or nothing, because they're missing some key components. And so, yeah, I think, we can talk about a whole framework to think through this in more granularly, but big picture, the right show with the right story or topic or teaching and the right call to action. I think that's kind of the three big pieces. And usually people are missing one of those. That many times, like I said, it's the call to action. They don't have one, or it's very weak. It's very convoluted. People don't really know what to do next, or they're just in the wrong place. So you can have a beautiful call to action, and if you're not talking to anyone or you're talking to the wrong audience, it's not going to land. So you want to align the right platform with the right message, and then have a very clear call to action, and really take on that authority and say, this is what to do next if this is resonating with you.
Okay, so I have to jump in. Sorry, Steve. I got to jump in because Dustin said something. And listen, audience, Dustin said something that everybody probably missed and that I caught on to, because in the green room before the show, Dustin and I were talking. I'm about to drop my first book, and my strategy is to be a podcast guest. Now, what Dustin said, if you caught it, he said the right show. Yes. So talk to us a little bit about, because look, everybody's got a podcast, and you could be on 1,000 podcasts in a year, but if they're not the right ones, tell us what the right one is.
Yeah, I think one would be things like size and ideal audience, but I think the place where most people miss the mark is actually in topic selection. And so a really easy way to think about this, think about your business as this circle, and think about the people you're thinking about, I want to be on their show, these hosts, this is their business. You don't want to have completely disparate circles, right? Like if I'm doing marriage coaching, I don't want to be on a show about gardening, because there's not going to be any resonance. Also, the bigger mistake people make, if I'm a marriage coach, I don't want to be on a show hosted only on shows hosted by marriage coaches. There's too much overlap, right? Like it's redundant. You're kind of competitive with the host. And so what I always like to do is, I'm an engineering brain. I like to find the Venn diagram, right? I want to find this little overlap in the middle where there's a gap that you can fill in their content that's really useful and relevant, but it's not competitive with the host. And so there's kind of two questions people could ask if they're wanting to explore this. So think about that core expertise that you have. What causes people to have the problem that you solve? So that's question one. And then the other question is, what symptoms come up when people have your problem? So if we use this marriage coach example real quickly, I don't want to be a marriage coach on a bunch of marriage coaching podcasts. However, what causes marriage problems? Lots of things, but one could be like first-time parenting. So a couple has a kid and it kind of wrecks everything and it changes their communication and they're not sleeping. So these ideal clients may very well be listening to shows about parenting for the first time, right? And they may feature experts on nutrition and sleep and all this stuff for babies. Well, if I come on as the featured expert for marriage for those couples, that's really, really resonant and it's very attractive. The other would be what symptoms come from, in this example, marriage problems. Well, maybe money fights, right? So if you're having marriage problems, you might be fighting about your money. So maybe you go be an expert on personal finance shows where you're teaching how married couples can budget and dream together and set goals together. And so it's a shoulder or an adjacent industry. That's really the key, in finding the Venn diagram where there's some overlap in the audience, but not complete overlap.
What if the marriage is a mess because the person is doing too much gardening? Because you said gardening in marriage, like it could be adjacent,
a marriage expert for gardeners. I mean, that could be a thing.
You love your vegetables more than me.
Exactly. But anyway, in all seriousness, I just want to say a couple things. I want to get to John V's question because I think it's something we want to talk about too. But I'll just say this: one thing I've learned from Rob and some other experts, in addition to the call to action at the end and the offer. Also speaking about what you do in the way you answer questions, right? So as a speaker, I speak on this. So Rob says, as a branding guy, I talk about this. That's another way to kind of promote what you do. It's subliminal a little bit, right? But it's there. And I've seen Rob do that. And I picked up on that big time. So I appreciate you, Rob, for doing that. But let's jump into John V's question real quick. And we kind of touched on some of this, but maybe we can dig a little bit. What's the smartest way to integrate insights from the podcast episode into a LinkedIn strategy that nurtures leads or educates clients?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and those are kind of my 1-2 punch: podcast guesting and LinkedIn. And so we have numerous strategies to tie these together. I'll kind of answer this quickly in 2 ways. One would be more of the content organic side of LinkedIn, right? And so podcast guesting is one of the best ways to generate content, right? So you get on, you get to teach, people are asking your questions, they're leaning into certain things that you say. Those become the golden nuggets that can then become the content that you know is going to resonate well on LinkedIn. So you have short form videos, you have excerpts, you have text, images, and things that come from that. So there's a whole plethora of content generation that you can then apply to LinkedIn. And you'll also, one of the things I said there was lean in, or like the hooks that resonate with the host. The host is very much a representation of their audience. And if their audience is your audience, that's a very valuable part of this, is getting clarity on what sticks and what the host is most interested in. So, hey, Dustin, hold on. Can you go through that again? And so, like, from our conversation as a live example, I could write a whole LinkedIn post about how to pick the right podcast. And I could talk about this Venn diagram, and I could include an excerpt from our interview about that because you guys were interested in it and you asked me a question. So that would be, there's a lot of great ways to generate content. And one sort of ninja tactic that I think people could take away on sort of an outbound strategy from LinkedIn that's very warm. One of the things I like to do, and that we teach people to do, is to mine the guest list. So if you're on a show and it's a great show and you think, man, that was a good resonant audience, well, there's a whole bunch of guests that have been on that same show, and there's new guests that are going to be on that show all the time. That's a really rich place to go make LinkedIn connections, because you have a warm reason to reach out, and you can be like, hey, Steve, you and I were both on Rob's podcast. Rob's awesome. I'd love to connect. And by doing that, you can grow your following, grow your connections, get DMs going. And often those people will either be potential clients, potential promotional partners, or they may have a platform or a podcast that you want to go be on, right? So we have an evergreen funnel just constantly going on LinkedIn. That's just me connecting with other guests on shows that I've been on.
I love it. That's great. Yeah, that is key, because I was, one of the things that was coming to my mind is, okay, how do you actively start to, because I do some podcasting, outbound podcasting, but it comes to me, kind of organically. It doesn't happen like where I just have to go reach out for it. So that's a great strategy for myself as well as other people on, getting out and doing more podcasts. So I appreciate that. Listen, I mentioned in the opening, right? It's about people that, do business with people they know, like, and trust, right? So it's about building trust. So community, type in #trust. So why do you think guesting builds trust faster than traditional marketing, in your opinion, Dustin?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things about podcast guesting, and it's core to the format. So it's long form educational content, right? So in general, 15 to 45 minutes of you showing up with a host who's saying, you should trust this person. They know what they're talking about. People are purposefully listening. They trust the host already. They already know the topic whenever they show up. And so you get a very long time to teach and show your credibility. And if you're doing it right, you're putting in certain stories, and you're showing empathy to the audience, and you're showing authority, and like, here's the results my clients have gotten, or here's a case study that I can highlight. All of that happening in one sitting, in one interview. And typically the audience is in sort of a semi hypnotic state. If you want to talk about psychology, like, they're tuning into this usually with earbuds, often while they're driving, walking, running, and you're very close to their brain, right? So and because it's story based, that makes it particularly compelling. And it is, the final thing I'll say, it is not interruption based. It is invitation based, right? If I choose to listen to a podcast, it's not someone showing up in my feed and trying to interrupt me and say, you're not even thinking about this right now, but I want to get your attention. Like most ads and most marketing, it's like they're opting in a trusting environment because they want to learn from you. And so you can really build that know, like, and trust cycle often in one interview if you do it right.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think what we find is, and Rob and I've seen this firsthand, that people trust you and they respect you when other people are speaking highly of you, not you pounding your chest, speaking highly of yourself. And so being on somebody's podcast, number one, often they're going to introduce you. They're going to introduce you with credibility, right? And also, hopefully, if they're good podcast hosts, which Hopefully after we're done, you'll say we're decent. But we speak highly of that, of the guest, you know, and that also adds extra credibility and that trust factor as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I just
Yeah.
want to add on to that what Steve's talking about, audience, in terms of the credibility. And pairing with Dustin's concept of storytelling. And look, storytelling is not new, and I didn't invent it. Dustin didn't invent it. But when you actually use it effectively, it creates a like Steve's word, compelling. Compelling. It compels people. Now, I told my story because I didn't know what else to say. But what I also did to add on to that, when you tell a story about success. You can tell your own story, tell the story of how you helped a similar client get success, because what raises trust faster than demonstrated expertise? People don't want to take a gamble on you. They want to know that if they hand over their hard-earned money, that they're gonna get a result. So that trust, when you tell a story, okay, I'm attracted to you. Now I've talked about demonstrated expertise. Oh, trust goes much higher, right, Dustin? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I would say with trust, definitely the credibility or the authority piece, and the other part that a lot of people miss, and you'll feel this when you listen to someone who does this well with telling a story. If you lead with empathy, that's very, very powerful, right? So if I'm going to tell a story, let's say it's about someone who's been on 100 podcasts and didn't get any results. One way for me to address that would be like, hey, I did the same thing. Like back in 2022, I was doing this randomly. I was putting a ton of energy into it. I felt like I was doing all the right things. I was trying to model all these people, and I didn't get anything out of it. And I felt like a failure, and I felt dejected, and I felt like, well, maybe I'm just no good. You know, maybe this introvert thing is really holding me back. And then, then there's this hero's journey. And then I found this coach, or I found this program, where I watched this one YouTube channel, and it unlocked for me. And now I get, 7 figures of leads, and I've helped 200 people do this, and I've been featured on all these stages teaching this exact strategy that I figured out. The second part of that is very important. I know what I'm doing. I have great credibility, and I get results, but it's way more sticky, and people are going to feel it and remember it if you relate to them first and show empathy for where they're at with it. And so I think empathy plus authority is kind of the ultimate shortcut to trust.
That's great. As you're telling what the empathy piece, it reminds me of Rob's story. And as he talks about how he was a graphic designer, not getting any business, failing in that world. And then he decided, hey, it was about branding, and that shift. And he tells it way better than I do, but I appreciate that. Listen, we're going to wind down. I want to sneak one more question in here. So it's all about connection, but it's also about, growing your income, right? So community, type in hashtag current connection currency. And I want to talk a little bit briefly. We're wrapping up here, but what role do authentic connections play in closing high ticket sales with less pressure? Let's get into something tactical if we could.
Absolutely. I mean, a big part of it is what we've talked about is the know, like, and trust cycle, right? And so the faster you can close that, the key to selling high ticket is to have a high degree of trust, right? And so I need to know that you can help someone like me, that I am helpable, and that you're the one to help me, right? And that you got to kind of have all three of those factors. So oftentimes when you're doing this right, it's somewhat about, do they believe Dustin can help them? It's actually more about, do they believe that they're helpable? And so that's where the empathy comes in. Like, I was just like you, or I've helped people just like you. And so in the interview itself, I think that's really important. And then beyond the interview, I mean, when we work with people, 2/3 of the time we spend with them is actually post-interview, right? So it's one thing to get on shows, find the right shows, tell the right story. It's a whole nother strategy on how do you monetize those relationships. And so, and I've talked a little bit about one of those strategies with LinkedIn and how to get some connections at scale when you do this right. And then the final thing I would say with that is just, you build so much relational capital with this form of marketing because it's human to human. And one of the really fun things the final thing I'll say about podcast guesting, it is a consistent marketing channel, just like paid ads or SEO or all these other things. Like, you will get consistent results when you do it through a strategy. And the wild card, and the really fun part that's changed my life multiple times, is it is human to human. And therefore you kind of get these unicorn events, the quantum leaps. The quantum leaps actually happen through this one person I met through this one appearance, introduced me to this thing, or we collaborated, or they invited me to this event, and it changed my life. And you literally can change your life with one relationship. And so it's not so predictable which relationships that's going to happen, but the more relationships you build, of course, the more surface area you have for those opportunities.
Love it. Listen, we gotta close down. I know you have an offer. Tell us a little bit about the offer for our community, and then best ways for people to reach you, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. Offer really simple podcast guest scorecard.com. And just like it sounds, it's a very simple scorecard. We've talked about a lot of stuff today. It makes it very simple. So you can go in and do a very quick self-assessment and figure out where do you need to dial things in, which levers do you need to pull to make sure that podcast guesting will be an effective strategy for you. And so we've boiled all these years and hundreds of clients worth of work down into a simple scorecard. So podcast guest scorecard.com will take you there. It's free. Yeah, I'd love for people to do that. And let us know if there's resources we can provide to aid in that. And then, yeah, aside from that, LinkedIn. We've talked about LinkedIn a lot. If you can spell my name right, I'm the only one on there. So Dustin Riechmann on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM and let's have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, we appreciate you. I'm going to have you in go back to the green room, but amazing. You brought incredible value to our community. We appreciate you big time, Dustin.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Talk soon. Take care. All right. Awesome, community. Well, what amazing. So next week, I know sometimes these shows are hard to beat, but next week we'll see if we can beat it. But episode 209, Wednesday the 30th, same bat time, same bat channel, The Art of Meaningful Connection with Robert Buttman. It's going to be a great show. I think he's been on a show before, but worthy guest, extremely valuable guest. And if you want to learn more about some of the up and coming guests and shows we have, and listen, Dustin, if you listened, Dustin just said, go check out some of the up and coming guests and go connect with them. But you can go see all the, for quite a while, we haven't put everything up on the site yet, but we're booked out all the way to the end of the year and beginning of next. But go to the masterconnector.show. And if you're interested in being a host of a show, and by the way, thank you, Yolanda. You're amazing for being on here. I didn't get to acknowledge you, or Sammy. Sam was on here as well. Thank you again for blessing us with your presence. And I mean that with all sincerity. I'm not being like facetious. It's incredible having you on here with us. But anyway, go to the masterconnector.show if you'd like to be a host of one of or a sponsor to one of our episodes. But I want to finish with a quick story. John Paul DeJoria's journey from homelessness to billionaire status and exemplifies the power of forging meaningful relationships. Starting with just $700, he co-founded Paul Mitchell Systems, leveraging deep connections with the beauty industry to build a trusted brand. Later, his network played a crucial role in the success of Patron Tequila, demonstrating how authentic relationships can lead to exponential business growth. Listen, let's continue to grow and to continue to build relationships, build rapport, develop that know, like, and trust, to be ultimately successful, so that we can ultimately be the light and shine our light. God bless. We'll see you guys next week.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes,
because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.